Hello, can you folks hear me? I'm going to assume yes. I'm seeing the levels bump on my little audio commentary histogram, so with that being said, I guess we're going to go for it. Hello, and thank you for joining us, or joining me. I guess I shouldn't speak in the royal we. I'm Jeremy Parrish with USgamer. This is USstreamer for July 21st, 2015, and I'm traveling back in time to, what, 1994, on a system made with components constructed, manufactured, and sometime in the 80s. Yeah, I'm playing Kirby's Adventure on an Analogue Nt, which is a very fancy, very expensive version of the NES. And the Analogue Nt is manufactured by Analogue Interactive. Oh wow, look, I just bought this and this game from eBay, and it has stuff on it. Let's get rid of the low completion one. Anyway, so I am playing Kirby's Adventure by request, because that's what the people demanded. Probably somewhat inspired by the fact that the former president of HAL, Satoru Iwata, recently passed away. And Kirby, of course, was developed by HAL, published by Nintendo, as one of the final NES games, one of the great NES games also, that was kind of overlooked in the day because no one owned an NES by the point this came out. But that's what's great about systems like the Analogue Nt, or even emulators, is that they allow us to go back in time and make up for all the things we forgot to do back when they were brand new. So games like Kirby get a second chance, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to switch to fire instead of that spark thing because it's much better. So anyway, the Analogue Nt started shipping right around the time of E3, and it had been on pre-order for like a year. And I know there's a lot of distrust. Oh right, Kirby can't jump on bad guys. Whoa, I'm a little rusty with this game. Anyway, there had been some misgivings about the nature of the analog and whether the people making it could be trusted. But anyway, the thing is shipped, and based on my experience with it, it's pretty good. It took me a little while to get it fully up to speed because I got the wrong cable at first. It was a European cable instead of a Japanese cable, so I couldn't get video. But eventually I got it all worked out, and right now it's running on my LCD television, LED television, through an upscaler. And as you can see, I've added scan lines to make it a little easier on my eyes. Scan lines sort of imitate the effect of old CRT televisions, which kind of produced video in rows, and that's kind of how these classic games were designed for. When you have this thing on a big 40-inch television like I do, it's actually a little jarring to have perfectly crisp, clean pixels. So the scan lines are really more for my own benefit than anything else. But you don't have to have the scan lines. That's something that I've added externally to the system. It outputs NES graphics pretty much like normal, except in RGB video quality. It actually ships with an S-video adapter, so if you don't have a fancy setup, you can run it into any television that has an S-video connection, an S-video port. There's also an optional daughter board that is taking a little longer to ship, I believe, and that actually will output directly as digital video through an HDMI cable. So it's a mother or daughter board developed by a guy named Kevtris, who's really well known and respected among NES modders and the classic gaming scene, and that takes the actual game signal, the video signal, and converts it directly into digital, as opposed to what I have now, which is outputting an analog format, and so it has to be converted through the upscaler, the FrameMeister that I'm using, and that's where the scan lines come into effect. So the HDMI daughter board, the add-on, that actually gives you much greater control over the video output. You can add scan lines and other things like that directly from the system. There's apparently a built-in menu that boots up when you log into the system. But I didn't get that because I have the external analog to digital adapter, the FrameMeister, which I use for other NES or other RGB modded systems. So it didn't make sense to have one system that operated under different principles than the rest. Anyway, so that's kind of the long and short of it. This is basically a really expensive and really fancy way to play NES games. That's it. But since I like NES games, then that's okay. Plus, I plan to do video capture, video streams, that sort of thing, and, it's nice to work with authentic hardware on authentic software instead of emulating. I realize that there are some emulators that are very, very good and very accurate, but there's still just something, maybe it's, someone on Twitter said, "Oh, this is the new listening to vinyl albums, right? Playing original NES cards," and I suppose there's some truth to that, but there is still a certain feel. It's a je ne sais quoi that I can't really quantify, but I definitely can tell a difference here. I've got very little lag, like 2 frames of lag on my television, so it's very quick and precise. I'm using an actual NES controller, so on and so forth. And there is this small, indescribable difference that I don't know. It's very appealing to me, and I'm very happy playing this. But I don't necessarily think this is the sort of thing for everyone to invest in, and I can't blame people for thinking, "Wow, $500 for an NES is really stupid." But this is kind of how I make my living, so I figured it was probably worth the investment. Kind of like my wife is a photographer, and she owns a really nice DSLR camera. That's not something most people actually need if they want to do photography. They've got an iPhone that probably has a really good lens, and that's going to do the trick for them, or even like a small point-and-shoot camera. But for someone who makes their living doing this sort of thing, it's always probably prudent to make an investment. Anyway, that's my spiel. So, like I said, I'm playing Kirby's Adventure, and it's been a while since I played this game, as you can see, because I really suck at it. But it's just such a nice-looking game. It's one of the most, I don't want to say necessarily technically advanced games on the NES, because there were games that had technology inside of them, special chips that really eclipse Kirby's Adventure, but it's a really good example, a great example of what the NES was capable of with a fairly standard chip. I think this is an MMC5 chip, so sort of the high-end chip that Nintendo developed, but not custom hardware or anything like that. And just with that, that sort of standard, available to everyone chip, HAL just did amazing things. And I actually don't know if Mr. Iwata had any direct involvement in Kirby. I really should know that. I know Kirby was designed by Masahiro Sakurai, the guy who does Smash Brothers these days. But I'm sure, given the sophistication of this game and his tendency to go hands-on with pretty much everything, I'm sure Mr. Iwata had some involvement with the game. And this is a testament to just the quality of work that HAL and Iwata in particular were known for. So it's very colorful, really kind of, even though it has the same limitations as other NES games, 3 colors or 4 colors per sprite and per background tile. It's very, it just makes great use of the color and is very cartoonish and vibrant. So anyway, I'm kind of here at the end of this level, and maybe it's time for me to look at the chat and see what people are saying as I drone on monotonously. So, let's go inside this door, get my bonus, call it a day. Let's see, so... what are people saying in chat? Hey, Jeremy. Okay, hey. Let's see. People are kind of talking about the different ways to do RGB gaming. For instance, with the Super NES, the Muteki says he likes the SNES Mini, the one that was re-released later in the Super NES's life because it looks nicer and takes up way less space. The original Super NES, as the Muteki says, is very ugly, blocky, and huge. It's not nearly as stylish as the Japanese and European systems. Very sad. Let's see. Someone mentions that the 3DS version of this game is great. I agree. It adds a little bit of depth to the game that really makes the graphics pop. Let's see. Someone asked if I opted for the HDMI mod on the Analogue. I said no. Let's see. And yeah, it's just kind of a lot of people in the chat bantering back and forth about game fidelity and how to set up classic games to work effectively on modern systems. And for anyone who's tried playing, an NES or a Super NES on an HD TV, a flat panel screen, and said, "Man, this looks like garbage," I just wrote a series of articles yesterday, kind of talking. It was sort of inspired by the Analogue. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. That gives some details on different options available for people who are interested in RGB mods and different ways to make classic games look great. There is sort of, at the basic level, there's emulation, but for those who don't like emulation, either because they don't like playing on PCs or they are concerned about the legality of it, there are a lot of options. There are clone systems, systems on a chip, devices that make use of actual game software. Like, I think about a year ago I did a stream of NES games on the Retron 5, which is a decent... oh, my precious star, come back. There we go. The Retron 5 is a decent emulator, not great, but what it lacks in quality it makes up for in just the sheer number of systems it emulates. It's got NES, Super NES, Genesis, it does all regions of those systems. Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, I think that's it, but that's a lot of different consoles to put in there. That's, 5 consoles, hence Retron 5. And it definitely has some glitches and flaws that you won't find on real hardware. I especially noticed in Goonies 2, which I played through on Retron 5, that, things like sprites would just disappear for no reason. Just little things that don't happen on actual hardware. Thanks, dude. So, that's why I like to use actual hardware, because it does have that sort of fidelity. You don't have to worry about, like, was it supposed to do that? It also has things like, legitimate hardware, as you kind of see at times where things slow down. But most of the time, games were sort of designed around that reality that there was going to be slowdown. So, alright, that's enough freeze. I'll go for the sword. So anyway, if you are interested in playing your classic games on the classic systems that they were designed for, there are options available, such as things like the Analogue Nt. There are cheaper ways to get RGB modded NESs. You can buy RGB modded NESs on eBay. There are always people selling them, or there are people who will sort of take that project under their wing and will trade for modded NESs or just do it on demand. I was in contact with a guy who goes by the alias Baphomet on NeoGAF, and he was really helpful and informative, and he just reached out to me and said, if you ever interested in an RGB mod, just let me know and I'll be happy to help out. So that's pretty cool. There are folks who just kind of do this as good citizens, and you can get an RGB modded system for maybe like $150, I think. I think I paid $130 for my Super NES, and that was fully modded. to do RGB. But then you also have to pay for things like the cables and the upscaler. I'm doing a really crappy job with this battle. Wow, what's wrong with me? I can't believe the tree dude is beating me. It's terrible. So the great thing about something like, you know, the system that I'm using with the upscaler, the upscaler setup is that once you have that equipment, then anytime you get an old system, whether it's RGB modded or not, you have the upscaler available and can plug those other systems in. So I have a Super NES, an N64, and then this NES, and you know, at some point I'll probably get a PC Engine or a Sega Genesis, and so on and so forth, and just, you know, complete the collection, as it were. There we go. That was embarrassing. I lost twice to this guy. So sad. Anyway, so now that I'm done with this stage, let's see what's being said in the chat. Kool-Aid-Man00 says, if you get the RGB mod for the, or the HDMI mod for the Analogue Nt, you can set the mod to crop out things like the overscan, where you see the frames of white on the side there. There's also overscan at the top and bottom. The NES was spec'd to output at 224 pixels, but it actually outputs at 240, and those extra 16 pixels tended not to show up on old televisions, so there would be junk data and other sort of just visual artifacts in that space. And that shows up here in this version because it's showing all 240 pixels of vertical resolution. Wow, congratulations me, I just got hit by a coconut. So, you know, that's a little bit ugly, and I can understand why some people might not necessarily like that, but yeah, it's just, you know, one of those weird quirks of old games. Take it as it is. So, you know, there is debate over whether it's better to go with the HDMI mod and do digital video, or to take the basic default version. The HDMI mod adds a lot of abilities and features, as Kool-Aid-Man00 mentioned. Does the umbrella protect me from... Yes, it does. That's so good. This game is just so full of great little details. Anyway, the HDMI mod offers a variety of options. I think the FrameMeister does too. I actually like getting, you know, the default video setting, the analog video, because it is a little softer with or without scan lines. It's just again, it's that vinyl comparison. It's like the warmth of vinyl sound versus digital sound. There are just little tiny flaws, softness in the video, and if you look in the areas of solid color, you can sometimes see color issues where the colors are kind of wavering. If you look in the blue sky there in the background, when the screen scrolls, and it's not because of the scan lines. There's just a little bit of a not a flicker, but just a slight spots of discoloration that are part and parcel of the imperfections of analog video. And when I say analog video, I don't mean Analogue Nt, I mean not digital video, basically. And that is just the worst power. On the other hand, umbrellas can't defeat it, so... Anyway, another level down. Let's see what the chat has said. Rubik's Cube mentions reading the book I Am Error, which I reviewed a couple of months ago on US Gamer. Has made him start to notice a lot more stuff about the NES, and yeah, you can definitely see some of the quirks and programming elements of the games by playing it in an RGB mod, because everything's so clean. Like if you look down at the bottom of the screen, right above the word island, where the display, the fixed display meets the actual play screen, there's a few pixels that just keep flickering in and out. I can't remember exactly what those things do, but it's basically like junk data that's being kind of cycled in and out of memory, I think. And you know, there's just little quirks like that that programmers had to make use of in order to maximize the NES. And that's part of the charm of these old games. Anyway, I've played a lot of Kirby, and I'm doing a really terrible job of it. So I think we're going to switch to another game and make use of the Analogue Nt's ability to play Famicom games. I'm playing this on NES, the NES slot, but the NT also has a Famicom slot, so you can play both